It's playoff time in the NBA and NHL. Baseball is in full swing, and Fanduel is your place to bet on every single game. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150, win or lose. You can bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all on an app that is safe, secure, and easy to use. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/UCSS and make your first bet an automatic win. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. And shout out to the Browns by the way, for hitting a winning ticket over the weekend. He had a bonus $5 bet on Josh Naylor to hit a home run, and Josh Naylor delivered, turned $5 into $26 on a bonus bet. So a free bet. Hit the Browns with a nice little dinner for one. So shout out to the Browns for sending in that ticket. Keep sending us your tickets. And while we're on the topic of FanDuel, Jay.
By the way, on Naylor's home run, I loved
we'll
his
talk
reaction.
about it. We're going to get to it. Don't worry. It's coming up. So I want to get this in quickly so we can spend plenty of time on the Guardians. FanDuel put out their AFC rankings for starting running backs in 2024. And Steve, you can take tag board full here. Nick Chubb came in at number 4, behind Breece Hall, number 1, Derrick Henry, number 2, and Jonathan Taylor, number 3. We don't know if Nick Chubb will be healthy for week 1. We do not know what Nick Chubb will look like when he comes back from his knee injury. But Earl, I'll start with you. Is it disrespectful to put Nick Chubb at 4th based on the player he's been for the last half-decade, or is that fair considering the uncertainty around Nick Chubb heading into the 2024 season?
I think it's overly disrespectful to put Nick Chubb at 4th because the only reason you're doing it is because the man is coming off an injury, right? But if you're basing this list, what is this off of? What
it's for 2024?
But
so you're projecting.
You're projecting, right? Okay. Yeah. Even if you're projecting, I just have confidence that Nick Chubb is going to be back, and I think he's going to do what Nick Chubb does. I don't know if he'll be ready for week 1 or not, but I think whenever he does hit that football field, he's going to be ready to go. At the end of the day, I still think Nick Chubb is one of the better backs, if not the best back, outside of Christian McCaffrey in the entire NFL. And I get it, he's coming off the injury and things like that, but nothing that we've heard leads me to believe that like he's behind schedule on his timetable to return. And I don't know, maybe it's just because it's Nick Chubb. I just have faith that this dude is going to come out here and he's going to ball out. I mean, to have a guy like Jonathan Taylor and Breece Hall in front of him, I don't know. If you want to put Derrick Henry in front of him, Derrick Henry or OG, I can respect that. You know what I'm saying? The proof is in the pudding. But for those other 2 dudes, I can't see those dudes being ahead of him.
Man, it ain't really disrespectful.
It's disrespectful.
I think it's like, all right, we don't know he's going to come back and what he's going to look like. You know what I'm saying? Now, I will say this. I mean, this is not his first knee surgery, and he tore multiple ligaments. As a matter of fact, he tore so many ligaments, they had to do 2 separate surgeries on his knee. So it is Nick Chubb, and if anybody else can do it, it's Nick Chubb. And I will say one of the reasons why I think he will come back good, and I think he will come back competitive, and Jay can speak to this. One of the first things that they want to do when you have an ACL surgery is make sure that your hamstrings and your quad strength is up to strength. Mm-hmm. And when you look at his hamstrings and his quads, you just go back and look how he squats. And when he squats, he's squatting below parallel. He's squatting big weight. He didn't have much atrophy in terms of what his quad strength and his hamstring strength are, which is going to protect you from those sudden cuts. It gives you a little more shock absorbing when you move in and you cut. And that's the thing that we talk about with him. It's his vision, it's his jump cuts, it's his ability to see backside and put his foot in the ground and get back 2-3 holes backside and make a guy mix. Those are what makes Nick Chubb special. And when you're doing these lists, what people are thinking about is he's a guy that you can very rarely tackle one-on-one. He's elusive, he's powerful, and he can run away from you. When you got a knee injury with that many ligaments, you're questioning whether or not he still is going to be Nick Chubb. Now, that's fair to say. If they'd had him outside of the top 10, I would say you're crazy. But at 4, I think that's just all injury, nothing to do with his skill set. I think that's what they're worried about, Jay.
Yeah, I agree. Earl, I hate to disagree with you because, I love your opinions and I love the way you come at stuff. But I don't think it's disrespectful at all. I think it's using past experience and past players to kind of figure out where he is. Now, there's no guarantee he'll be ready for week 1. Mm-hmm. by the way, I like the fact that we haven't heard anything about his rehab.
Yes.
Great.
Yes.
I like that. Don't give us false hope. Because when I heard Deshaun Watson talk about his shoulder, he's like, oh, yeah, man, I'm fine. It's great. It's great. Then I heard Andrew Berry talk. And I'm like, man, Andrew Berry's talking about a different shoulder. He's like, well, you don't know how these things are going to
be talking about this one.
And what's weird is, I honestly believe that Andrew Berry was trying to pull the horse back into the barn a little bit. Because look what we did. If Deshaun's 100%, we're going to win Super Bowl. We're going to playoffs. And Andrew's basically been around the block. And he's like, look, bro, don't heap more hay on your back than you can carry.
Oh, they probably had a meeting. They had a meeting after that.
I think they had a call. And Andrew dialed back expectations, and I like that. I like that we haven't heard from Nick Chubb, and I bet we won't. But the thing of it is, and you know this, it's an injury unlike any other. It literally is. It's the holy grail of injuries. No two ACLs are the same. No two ACL surgeries are the same, and no two ACL comebacks are the same. The good news is he had this when he was at Georgia, and he bounced back. Great. And if you look at that video from when he blew up his knee in Georgia,
that was crazy.
It looked just as cringeworthy as the Minka Fitzpatrick hit. It's nauseating to think about actually what happens to your knee when you tear your ACL. The corresponding muscles, because ligaments are what they are. You don't strengthen them. They are what they are. The corresponding muscles are what determine how you come back. Here's the good news. Some surgeries where you can do work, even though the injury is had, they call it prehab. So that's kind of a new thing. Doctors say, I want you to strengthen the muscles around it without, you can't injure you couldn't do that with the ACL. He needed to have surgery, even though there was a cooling off period. But his prehab is his body and the condition it was in when the injury happened. His muscles are superhuman. He is Barry Sanders, Adrian Peterson 2.0. Okay, he's just a freak of nature. So because of that, his atrophied leg is in better shape than 99% of any human on this planet when they're in peak shape. Even after he's atrophied for months after the surgery and he's done nothing. So that's his base. That's his starting point. His starting point is better than most people's finishing point. And his work ethic, his desire to be great, all of that bodes well for him. But they don't know Nick Chubb like we know Nick Chubb. They turn on the TV and they see his highlights and they're like, wow, that dude can run. We've gotten to know Nick Chubb over the 6 years he's been here.
Yes, we have.
We've gotten to know him as a quality human being who quietly goes about being the best in the world. And that's what he's spent every single day doing since his surgery.
And think about this.
And so we believe he'll be back.
Yeah.
I wouldn't rank him fourth, but I can't kill them for ranking him fourth.
And that, I guess that's where my fandom...
They don't know what we know.
That's where my fandom really took over because they don't know what we know.
And that's fair.
And sometimes like you could just have these thoughts and you don't really have no facts to back it up. But everything you just said is why I felt like he was being disrespected because how well I feel like I know Nick Chubb, right?
Yeah. We know
him, right?
Yeah, they don't.
I remember the Pivot podcast he did with Ryan Clark and them last year.
Yep.
And he talked about when the running back position, the talk was you can replace Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb has said he's always worked his ass off to make sure he can't be replaced.
Right.
That he's not just any old back that you can just replace him with. I remember saying some years ago, like, he reminds me so much of Adrian Peterson, like how he plays football, how he carries himself, like everything. And because of how Adrian bounced back from his knee injury,
8 months.
I just believe this is the same mode of football player. I think this is the same mode of man. And I go back to the point of we've seen in medicine and technology and everything just continues to advance and advance and advance and advance, and when you hear Andrew Berry talk about some of the things with Nick Chubb, it's kind of almost like he got to sit this boy down. He tell him to go sit down somewhere, go chill out. So he's clearly chopping at the bit to get back out here, and to just get things back on track. And I think it's going to be a solid season whenever he's back. I think it's going to be a solid season.
I agree with that. I think when he is on the football field, he will be close to the version of Nick Chubb we've seen in the past.
I'll give you two names. Marshawn Lattimore. I don't know if people remember how great he was. If you were a historian of the SEC and how he was dominant at South Carolina, he was supposed to be that type of guy. Darren McFadden was supposed to be that type of guy. You take a look at, and I think always remember. And my thing is remember how good Todd Gurley was.
Right.
Gurley was 1,000-yard receiving, 1,000-yard, 1,200 yards. Todd Gurley is not even 30 years old.
No, I know. But they ran his doors off.
They did. But that's how it is with knees. When you get a knee injury, and the thing that, and you don't want to put this on nobody, but it's the degenerative factor. When they go in multiple times, right? You start to see the cartilage. Yep. You start to see the swelling.
The scar tissue.
The scar tissue that you can't do anything. Your knee swells after practice. And that's the most frustrating thing to anybody. I mean, I've had 2 ACLs. I've torn my PCL and my patella tendon. It's just the fact that you can't play back. You can't go the back-to-back stuff that you used to do. You have to take days off. And it's frustrating because you're not getting better then. You're just maintaining that level of play because you can't practice, and sometimes you can't, you might be week to week. So my thing is I hope he doesn't have any of that right now. The great thing about it is I think the Browns did a really good enough job. And by the way, we just talked about the draft. I wouldn't throw it out the window that they draft a running back. I think they, when you got a guy like, Nick Chubb, you don't want to force him back. Hey, week 6, put him on the pup list and figure out what you can do. Right. I wouldn't force him back.
I think because of the time he had the injury, it was early September.
Yeah.
So you start doing math forward. Now I know this is not fair to him, but he's the closest comparison I have to Nick is Adrian Peterson. And when he tore his ACL and was playing in games 8 months later, it ruined it for everybody that ever had ACL surgery after that because the time frame was always 12 months.
Right.
And when Adrian came back in 8, everybody's like, what? Oh, well, hey, medicine's getting better. You can now come back in 8. No, you can't. But if anyone can, it would be Nick Chubb.
You know who messed
And you know where we are right now? He did it in early September. September, October, November, December, January, February, March, April. We're 8 months exactly post-tear.
Hey, McNuggets, you know what? You know who messed it up for everybody was John Elway. You know he doesn't have ACLs?
Yeah, I've heard players that have torn ACLs didn't have them replaced and continue to play.
Crazy, right?
Like he don't have ACLs. Right?
No, he ain't got no ACL.
He has his ACLs removed?
He just doesn't have them.
Like I think either you're born with them, you get them removed though.
Yeah,
I don't think anyone's born without ACLs.
You get injured.
Who knows? You're born without digits, hands.
That's a good point, actually. That's a dumb statement.
Somebody fact check that too.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's completely true though that he doesn't have ACLs.
I'll look into it while we're talking Guardians. Okay, we got to spend the last 20 minutes